Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the Sunday garden question and answer video that I do on Sundays, but not this week. This one will be on Wednesday because I just didn't have time to get it accomplished this past week. Holly was out here on take one. It's super muggy out here this morning, and she's 12 and a half, and she decided inside was better for her this morning, and I don't blame her. Tropical storm moved over the western part of the state yesterday, apparently caused some washouts and some damage. That can happen when you get 9 inches of rain in the mountains in a day. We got spared it other than a few showers here or there, just kind of muggy this morning, rain a couple times at this point. And again, she decided to scoot out of the video this morning. I put up 2 videos from Mr. Maple since my last question and answer video, and 2 tour videos from a neighbor in the neighborhood. If you haven't seen those, you can go back and take a look at those this coming week. I've got videos for my planting my fall vegetable seeds. You'll see that as early as tomorrow, and lots of other content coming up. Should be a pretty good rest of the month of the things that I have lined up. Should be fun. Hope so anyway. Let's get started on some questions. Somebody has a cherry tree and it's got the either the brown rot blossom blight or one of the many bacteria or fungal issues that things in the stone fruit family can have. The stone fruit would be plums, peaches, cherries, you know, those fruits that have the pits in the middle of them. They're all in the rose family, and they all have tons of problems. And so if you plant things in the rose family in your landscape, expect at some point you're going to have issues. That serviceberry that's in the front yard, another Rosaceae member. You get that on these types of blights, you get 1 or 2, 3 dead limbs up in the top of them each late spring, early summer. Tends to happen worse when it's in the wetter springs, muggy springs. There really isn't any kind of cure for it. If there was a cure for it, you know, people would have figured it out a long time ago. People have been hybridizing cherries and peaches and these things for a long time. It's not as though people aren't trying to prevent these types of issues in new varieties with, you know, but it continues. The thing to do here is to make sure you cut those limbs out as they die, and then clean up under your tree. Make sure there's no leaves that have dropped off, small limbs that have dropped off, mulch underneath it. Just keep a completely clean slate underneath it. That will help some. You are never going to get rid of it. There is nothing you can spray that will get rid of it. You can call your local extension agent, and maybe they know the particular type of bacterial or fungal blight that you have in your area, and they may recommend you spray something. They are not helping you because it won't go away. So I would imagine if I had a peach orchard and I was a peach grower, obviously I would be proactive, but a single person in their backyard, I don't know what you could do about it on a cherry or a peach or a plum or whatever. This person did not ask about spraying anything, but I will throw out to you, if you're asking questions on this channel that end in "what can I spray?" you are on the wrong channel. I remove things that are driving me crazy. I would rather tear the plant out than get into a pattern of spraying a fungicide or an insecticide. That doesn't mean, and I'm not dictating that to you. You do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter to me. But if you're asking me that question, you're going to tear the plant out and move on with your life. That's what you're always going to hear from me. It's always going to be the same exact answer. If something has a major problem in this landscape, and I'm at the point where I'd want to go grab the Liquid 7 or the fungicide or the herbicide or whatever to deal with it, it's out. It's out and gone. So that's always going to be my answer. Probably is and I think in an ornamental landscape like this is the right answer. If it's driving you crazy, get rid of it. It's 90% of your energy going into one plant, and you're not enjoying the rest of your landscape. Okay, but that person didn't ask what to spray. They just were asking in general. But that's kind of the rules of those types of issues on those stone fruit, is keeping them clean underneath can go a long way in slowing it down. Okay, somebody wants to know where to plant a Rosa Sharon in Texas in Zone 8. When they come up on their own here, because they're actually noxious weeds, the old varieties of Rosa Sharon, unfortunately, are noxious weeds. They always come up on the edge of the woods here in Zone 7B. I think they in the south, they prefer a spot that gets some direct sun, but not all day. And so if you have that spot in your yard in Zone 8 in Texas, I think that's probably ideal. to not put it where it's getting 15 hours of direct sun. If you're in zone 5, obviously, stick it out, the more sun, the better. But here in the south, I think they need part shade. There are new varieties of Rosa Sharon that are apparently sterile and cultivars and won't spread themselves. Probably too late to worry about it anyway. I literally could walk back here along this wood line and we could find 50 of them seedlings right now. It's a native now, unfortunately. Somebody asked me, they want to plant, I had shown a couple times over the years, espaliering plants against walls, like camellias, where you can grow a camellia just flat up against a wall and it has the appearance of it being a vine. I'm sure you guys have seen this. Magnolia grandiflora works great for this. Lots of plants that lend themselves to growing flat against the wall without attaching themselves and doing damage to the wall. This person was concerned about drilling holes into their brick wall. I've attached metal structures to brick walls many times in my landscape career, and I filled the holes with silicone after. So honestly, that spot with the silicone is probably more watertight than the brick veneer is at the end of the day. But I did just fill them with silicone. I mean, you don't want to do a hack job on anything. If it's something you're uncomfortable with, then number one, don't do it. Or hire a landscaper. But there probably are jobs. I mean, I'll tackle a lot of things. But I mean, I know my limitations, and so drilling holes in your house and you're only going to do it once in your life might not be the job for you. It might be for a landscaper to do a few things here or there that they have day-to-day experience on. I don't do the electrical work, in my house. It's not that I don't have an understanding of it. It's just I don't do it often enough to trust myself with it. So if you don't trust yourself with it, hire somebody. If you are uncomfortable with it just in general, drilling holes in your house, I understand, and just pass on it. And maybe you can find a structure that doesn't have to be attached to the house directly, that's sturdy enough to just stand next to the house. Okay, let me see. Somebody asked me if it's safe to plant a Limelight hydrangea in August. I'll answer this question the way I've answered it 100 times. It's totally safe to plant it in August. It probably needs to be if it's actively flowering, like the flowers are still white, bright white, it's best to take them off if you want to sink it in the ground. I would probably, and they were in like zone 8 or something, I would probably, if you don't want the flowers or the plant to decline, I would probably enjoy the flowers in the container, and when it slows down flowering, that's when you can stick it in the ground. That way you get the best of both worlds. But I will tell you, if you stick it in the ground in full flower, it either has to sacrifice those flowers quickly, or it has to sacrifice a lot of bottom leaves and thin out. So you're not doing any favors to it. If you want to stick it in the ground, prune it back. If you want to enjoy the flowers, wait till September to plant it. Okay, let's see. Somebody asked me about planting ground covers. I talked about not planting grasses in the late fall, mid to late fall in my area. Grasses that go dormant. Because I don't have as much success with them, especially in my clay soil, because it stays so wet. So then I started getting questions on other things that might be planted, not planted in the fall. Somebody said I think they were in zone 7, but they're planting ground covers that are hardy to zone 4. You can plant those all winter long. I've planted, you won't believe some of the things I've planted in the winter time that are, as long as they're a couple zones hardier than your area. I mean, I've literally cut the plastic pots off like junipers and planted them where they were frozen in the ground in January, and had no problem at all. So, but junipers are hardy to zone 4 or 5, depending on the variety. I'm in like say 7B here. So if it's something that's just super, super cold hardy in your area, the winter's probably not going to hurt it. Again though, this is always a comfort level thing. The first time you do something, it's scary. Kind of understand that, and as you do things more and more. So if it seems scary to you, you may want to wait till spring, and that way it's just not a stress in your life. That's kind of the way I look at it as well. If it's something that's going to worry you, then wait till spring. Okay, let's see. Somebody wanted to know about planting. Here we go. And Rosa Sharon, again, another Rosa Sharon question. We'll just call Rosa Sharon shrub, woody shrub, okay? It doesn't have to be a Rosa Sharon, any woody shrub. And mullygrass in September. Mullygrass is another grass that's going to go dormant. Mullygrass is going to be in full bloom in September. I think it's September you probably find planting both of them. I probably wouldn't plant the mullygrass as it starts to decline into October, November, December, and goes to sleep. I'd overwinter it in the pot at that point because they rot. That's a particularly bad one for winter rot, is Mullenbergia. But that Rosa Sharon, you can probably plant upside down in the hole, park your car on it, and and completely ignore it, and it will probably live any month of the year. That's an exaggeration, obviously, but Rosa Sharon they're tough plants. This is a great question. Somebody bought a willow oak. They bought it from a mail order company. It's about 5 foot tall, but it's a little whip. And in the tree growing business, we tend to grow them really super close together early on to try to stretch them out they compete against one another for light, and it makes them grow super fast, which means that we buy lots of trees that don't have a lot of caliper on them. They've grown really tall, but they don't have a lot of caliper, meaning they're not strong enough to hold themselves up. And so they got a 5 foot willow oak that's staked, and it's kind of wispy. They called the company. The company told them to leave it staked for a year. They went to their local garden center or landscaper or somebody that says we always take the stakes off of them. Obviously, if you take the stakes off of it going into fall, if you get they were in zone 6 in West Virginia, so you know they're going to get snow. Snow doesn't have a huge impact on an oak because it doesn't have leaves on it, but an ice storm could. I would probably leave it staked. The one thing I will say that if it's got the plastic stretch tie going all the way up it, you might change the location of the plastic stretch ties if you can move them, or buy a roll of that plastic green stretch tie. You can get it at any garden center or on Amazon or wherever you want to buy it. Doesn't matter. But that tree staking green stretchy tape, and restake it occasionally in different spots so it's not it's not hurting the same spots on the tree. But my guess is you're probably going to have to leave it staked for a little while, at least through this first winter, to make sure it doesn't end up bent over from some sort of storm or something during its first winter. But don't let it be staked in the same exact spot constantly. Okay, somebody. I don't remember what the question was, but it was about a purple leaf. They have a purple leaf plum in zone 9 and in the south, and it was doing terrible, and have replaced it with a crepe myrtle, and want to know where the best place to go put this purple leaf plum would be. I think probably in zone 8, so you can get in the car and find whatever interstate goes north. And that's a joke, but I doubt in the south in zone 9 that purple leaf plum is another Rosaceae member, and it probably has zone 9 on the tag, but that's going to be like zone 9 for Washington or Oregon coast probably. Zone 9 in the south with a purple leaf plum, I don't know that it's ever going to do all that well. You definitely want the roots shaded on it, and so some spot in your yard where you can keep the roots shaded on it. It's one of the, even my purple leaf plum in zone 7B at the old house, midsummer every year it dropped half its leaves and it had all kinds of problems. It was a beautiful tree, don't get me wrong, but it had all kinds of problems on it. So I can't imagine in zone 9 in the sun, what that would be like. I don't know that it's the tree for you, but you probably can put it in some space where it's going to get afternoon shade. So lots of sun in the morning, and at some point those roots probably need to be shaded as much as anything. They're going to have, a lot of these plants have very superficial root systems. The roots are right up in the top 2 or 3 inches. So if the sun's hitting them directly, that's problematic. If you look at an orchard, each tree is protecting the roots of its neighbor. Blueberries are planted even like this close together, where these plants are shading the roots. So they're in the full sun in the middle of a field, but the roots are being shaded and they're being mulched as well. So I just don't think a purple leaf plum in the south in zone 9 is probably, somebody's going to be watching this, has one in zone 9 and it's doing great, but maybe. Okay, somebody asked, they're in East Tennessee, and I've recommended in the past using pine bark soil conditioner to amend clay soils. I've kind of stopped recommending it and not recommend. It's still the best thing to use. It's just the problem is 80% of the people in the country watching my videos can't find it, because it's in the southeast. We have pine trees, and as they're processing pine, you know, we have a lot of extra pine bark. And so that pine bark's used in the nursery business. It's used for mulching. It's used by landscapers. We use it for all kinds of things. But in other parts of the country, you can't find it. So I understand that. So I've just kind of started recommending putting down a coating of organic material, of compost, and then some sort of organic material, mulch or whatever, the top, and just improving it as time goes on. They mulched the space and then they tilled it in. You got to be really careful with the amount of organic. It was a long post about all the things they've been doing to this clay soil to improve it. You got to be super careful not to add too much organic material to clay soils. If you do, you can end up with really boggy. You can make it worse, okay? And I think I have said in the past, and I want to reiterate this, you're okay not using anything. The wrong thing, nothing is better than the wrong thing when we're amending soil or, you know, adding things to the landscape. So keep that in mind. Nothing is better than the wrong thing. And so if you can't find the perfect thing to use, just plant directly into it and it'll be fine. Just make sure you're mounding your plants up above the grade. That clay soil, I mean, all these things in the background of, you know, if you come, you know, anywhere in the southeast, or in my area of the southeast where this clay soil is, all the plants look great. They're all growing in clay. They don't have any problem with it. But when you're planting, make sure you're mounding things up. Again, I put down a layer of compost on the top, and that gets mixed in a little bit, you know, as I plant. Obviously, I pull the mulch back, and that compost is still sitting there, and it's getting mixed in a bit. But I'm careful not to go too crazy with organic material. I think people think that, you know, black dirt's got to be the best kind of dirt. You know, be careful with that, especially in clay soil. You don't need more than about 10% organic material in your soil, less than that even. I mean, if you, and you can grow great plants. Just make sure you're mounding them up. That's a long answer, but again, I want everybody to hear that. Nothing is better than the wrong thing. And if you get crazy mixing in too much organic material into your soil, you can cause boggy conditions, inorganic conditions where the soil just smells foul, things aren't breaking down properly, that kind of thing. So you're better off planting directly in your native soil and just, you know, mounding things up a little bit if it's clay, so that they're not sitting down in that water. Okay. Somebody asked, and I get this question all the time about the espoma plant. You know, they use the espoma plant tone, and the dogs, of course, go crazy for it. And is there any suggestion? Unfortunately, if you use any organic fertilizer, your dogs are going to go crazy for it. It might be that if if the dogs have to share that space with the plants, I might use some other type of fertilizer, some some other just coated prill fertilizer. I wouldn't worry. That's probably what I would do, is just use a non-organic fertilizer in those conditions and just use a small amount of it. We tend to push our plants too much anyway, and I've talked about this 1,000 times. So I'm not going to fertilize anything going into spring. I'm going to make a video about it because I talked about I'm just adding organic material to the soil instead of bringing in things from the outside all year next year. I've talked about this already, so you're not going to see me fertilize next spring as part of this experiment. I'm just going to be adding organic material to the top of the soil, letting that break down, letting all the soil life break that stuff down and make it into available food for the plants. So you can, if you have that dog issue, you can move to another type of fertilizer, but keep in mind, you're probably over fertilizing anyway. And it was a question in August about fertilizer, so just be careful not to fertilize too much in August anyway, because we don't want to push these plants right now. Believe it or not, the days are starting to get shorter. I mean, I noticed last night it was dark, well before 8:30, and it'll be, the days are going to get shorter quicker. These plants are picking up on that. They're going to start slowing their growth down and getting themselves prepared for that first frost that I'll get in mid-October here. Some of you will get frost in September. Some of you won't get frost until December. But, these plants know to start slowing down as the time goes on. So you don't want to be pushing them right now. All right, so that was question number 10. Okay, let's see. Somebody asked me they got a couple dead limbs on their red bud. I don't remember what variety it was in the question, but I've got this red bud back here. Wanted to know when to prune them off. If you've got two small dead limbs on something, go take them off. It doesn't matter if it's January or, August. It just doesn't matter at all. Just go take them off. Don't do any heavy pruning on anything. Just like I just talked about with the fertilizer. You don't want to be fertilizing now. You also don't want to be doing a lot of general pruning on things, because again, that's going to, that cutting makes the plant, triggers growth, which again could be problematic going into fall. But if it's dead limbs, get them out of there, clean them up. It doesn't matter when it is. That's the answer to that. A question on a butterfly bush. Somebody has those brown marmorated stink bugs that will get on butterfly bushes. You need to cut your butterfly bush down. This is an insect problem that you can lessen quite a bit. You need to be cutting down your butterfly bushes in late winter anyway. And I would basically make sure you're removing pretty much every leaf. That particular insect lays its eggs on the back of the leaves, and then they start over the following spring. So make sure you're pruning back if you have this issue, that stink bug that gets on butterfly bushes. If you have this issue, it's more important than ever to prune them probably late February. I don't know where you live. Late February, the end of your worst of your winter, you can prune your butterfly bushes back to 18 inches and get rid of that material completely off of your landscape, okay? And you can lessen this problem. You probably won't get rid of it, but if you just leave it in place until next spring, all of those eggs are on the back of those leaves. So the last question for this week is a good one. I will say it's a very good question. Again, if I'm not getting to your questions, it's not on purpose. Don't take it personally in any way, shape, or form. Just ask again, or again, I'll go back and find some other questions. There's just so many right now that I'm not going to be able to answer them all in single videos once a week. Somebody asked me about straight natives versus cultivars, meaning that the people who are native plants, that like native plants only, sometimes will say that cultivars of native plants or improved for humans versions of native plants aren't native. I'll let the native plant folks argue that one forever. I don't have any problem with it whatsoever. I don't see the difference between a human taking two Rudbeckia and crossing them together and the same thing happening out in nature, which is exactly what happens. They cross with one another in nature. I don't see the difference. But with humans, we go through and of course select the ones that's the most compact, the most floriferous, the most, bright colors and all those kinds of things. And so we get very specific with what we're looking for in these named cultivars. But I really don't see that much of a difference in a named cultivar of a native plant and just a straight native plant. And in fact, if I go out in the woods in the southeast and look for Yopon hollies as an example, I'll find Yopon hollies with large leaves, small leaves, weeping habits, upright habits, wine-colored foliage, green foliage, just completely different plants where they're crossing with one another out there and creating new ones all the time. So I don't see a lot of difference in it, but arguing with native plant folks is like banging your head against the wall, honestly. But the one thing I do agree with them on is that we should be concentrating on, lots of native plants. And I think that despite the fact that I have lots of Asian plants in this landscape, all of which play nice, and that's important to me, is that I want to get across that I haven't planted a Rose of Sharon that seeds itself in this landscape. I haven't planted wisteria that seeds itself in this landscape. All the Asian plants I have in this landscape are picked very much along the lines of they will sit here and not go anywhere else ever. And, when humans are not here or whatever, that plant's just going to die and native plants are going to take its place at some point. That's important to me. So I am conscious of this. But there are a lot of native plants in this landscape. Most are named cultivars. So, if you think that named cultivars aren't real natives, then I'm part of the problem too. Thank you guys for watching this video and following along, and ask questions down below, and I'll put up another video, a question and answer video on Sunday. Thanks for watching.